Okay, and I think it's enough. We are live. I just decided to, to advertise one of my reels with the memes, which often seem to be well received by the public for a comic relief. We'll talk about another comic relief. Um, but thanks everyone for joining. I see that people are actually joining the live stream. Matthew, we have a brand new guest, Cadence, who joins all the way from where?
Virginia.
Virginia. Wow, that's awesome. So we have
Yeah, it's great.
first ever female guest, very active in the this large community, online community of parents and freedom fighters. So thanks so much for finding the time to join us.
Sure thing.
And thank you, Cadence. Matthew?
Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, no, it's a great day, and actually we had we have to be fair and balanced on this show, not because we're competing with Fox News or anything, but we've had some criticism. Well, not yet, but we've had criticisms that maybe our message is too male viewpointed, and that maybe we need to get a different point of view, or maybe something that's not distinctively male. Enter the picture Miss Cadence Harper, the lovely and talented. We're so happy to have her. Actually, this is terrific. But no, and I'm kind of joking about that, but I think there is some, it's always a good idea to get multiple viewpoints. And so we're always happy to have guests on the show. And we are delighted to have, I'm getting my phone is clicking here. We're delighted to have Miss Harper. So if you wanted to, we want to also try to be with our rules and our narratives and stuff and but basically, if you want to tell us, your fact pattern, why you're involved, in trying to stop all this court corruption and why you think it's important. And I think also if you have any solutions or remedies that you wanted to offer, I think that would be important. But anyways, please take it away. And then we're going to cross-examine you here in the middle of it and give you a hard time. But please, the floor is all yours.
Well, look, I am here for a hard time. It's pretty much all I've ever known. So let's do it. I entered the family court system when I was about 4 years old, when my parents got divorced. I am the daughter of a narcissistic mother. If you've dealt with a narcissistic or borderline cluster B personality disorder type female, they're a different monster. They operate very differently than the male counterparts do. And they can be much more vicious and vindictive, and they do not let anything go. They don't forgive, they don't forget, they will punish you for your entire life. And that's what my mother decided to do to me and my daughter. So that's how I ended up in it. It started with my mother keeping me away from my dad for the vast majority of my childhood up until I was a teenager. And when I finally realized that my dad wasn't the monster that she painted him to be, I obviously started building a relationship with him. And that was the ultimate betrayal to my mother. And she never forgave it. So when I had my daughter a few years later, she decided to take custody. And she did. And she somehow succeeded with false allegations of abandonment. She gave them a false address for me. Well, she told them she didn't know where I was. I was living with her. So, yeah, that went really well. But the judge granted her temporary custody and then transferred the case to Fauquier County, which is the same county that courthouse that I grew up in. There's a statue of John Marshall right out in front of it. And we all know who John Marshall is. We love that guy. A law that is repugnant to the Constitution is void. We all need to remember that one. But John Marshall was born right here in Fauquier County. So there's your little fun fact. But so I spent all of my childhood up until I was emancipated at 17, dealing with family court. And then when I had my daughter, my mother took custody, and I had to fight for almost 7 years to get her back. And it was just like, why is history repeating itself? And it was all the same characters. My attorney was my dad's old attorney. Her guardian ad litem used to be my guardian ad litem. It's weird, It didn't make sense, and it shouldn't have gone down the way that it did. And I'm still upset. I've yet to receive so much as an apology from any of them. And they know how badly they screwed up. They know the damage that they caused. And they don't want to accept responsibility or accountability for what they've done. So I'm just going to go ahead and do my best to make sure that everybody I get in contact with knows their rights, knows what they can and can't get away with in the family court system. And there's some loopholes that we should all be aware of, and a lot of laws and statutes that we need to be looking at. But we need to educate each other. We have to take care of each other in this world because we're all we have. The general public has no idea about this. They don't know. You don't know how bad family court is until you get trapped in it. And for me, that was 34 years.
Well, if I could ask you some questions, and we wanted to be maybe a little bit more informal, like the Dick Cavett show when he's interviewing Woody Allen or something like that, because you're such a friendly person. We want to, be friendly and stuff. But I'm just curious, do you hear so much about this term parental alienation. Do you think that you've been, a victim of that, I guess, for lack of a better word, without putting words into your mouth? What are your thoughts about parental alienation?
Here's the thing, and a lot of people get really testy about parental alienation because of what it's called, because of where that term comes from, that Richard Gardner guy who was not a good dude. So there's a lot of animosity towards the term. So there's this guy, Dr. Childress, who tries to call it pathogenic parenting, and he tries to use the DSM-5 to describe it. Seems like a pretty smart guy, seems to know what he's talking about for the most part. But I don't think he's really getting anywhere yet. I haven't seen any real progress over in or is it California where he's at? I believe he's in California. But I haven't seen a whole lot of publicity and stuff going on with that. But Charlie McCready, he talks about parental alienation. I really like him. He's over in the UK. Really nice guy. I went on a podcast with him many months ago. He's very informative on it. Like, it's a thing. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's a thing. It happens. And it's these cluster B personality types that generally do it. They cause so much psychological harm. They brainwash their own children because they hate their ex more than they love their kids. And that's
I've heard
just
that.
not.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this here. How would you, if we were to press you for a definition, how would you define the term parental alienation?
Intentionally teaching a child to not trust the other parent or to not want to be with the other parent. It's brainwashing. It's brainwashing. There's,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's so deep and insidious, and just the tactics that they use. Mark Ludwig has been, I'm sorry, I probably butchered his last name. He's been posting a lot of reels about it and the tactics that these people use. And he's spot on. Like, every video that comes up, I'm like triggered, like, oh my God, yeah, they did that. She did that. And it's rough, but he's absolutely right. They do these things. They interrupt visitation time with bunches of phone calls. Making a parent an alien, a stranger. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge the audience. So we are joined by people gradually. John, thank you. Justice J, thank you. We have consistent viewers, very loyal. So thanks everyone. And it will reach hundreds as usual, hopefully, or thousands, which some episodes did. So, Cadence, thank you very much. Your perspective as a mother, right, and as a second generation who experienced in alienation yourself, right? Sounds like it's very, very valuable. This is something that we need to talk about, and it shows how long this process of subversion has been taking place, right? I think it's not only the alienator, but it's also the government and the courts that enable that.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, maybe that's a segue into another topic that I know that you wanted to cover, and that's your own activism in this space, right? And thank you again for being balanced and seeing the father's plight in this whole insanity that surrounds us, which is clearly totalitarian. I think Matthew and I agree. It's pure Nazi Germany. It's Holocaust, child Holocaust on repeat, but very clever this time. But
yeah, it's gotten pretty weird out there in society today, and we have a lot of work to do as a species, as a society. We have got to work together. We've got to stop doing this gender role stuff. Not gender role, but like the gender bias, like, oh, mothers against fathers or fathers against mothers. Like, that's not what it's about, and we need to really stop that. There's so much work to be done that we need to do together, because we're not going to accomplish anything if we're fighting.
I have an issue with the word gender. I think it's part of the communist subversion of language. I think there are only two sexes, not genders. I think it opens the field in order to split again and create more identities. But everybody in the audience, I think, understands what you're referring to.
I'm being general. It's just a word. It's just a word.
It's still our show, though, so you know.
It's a battle of the sexes, but it needs to not be. There's no need for it, because we're putting our own egos ahead of the well-being of our children when we try and do that stuff. So we've got to come together as parents, as people. We're on a floating space rock. We need to get it together. It's not that hard. Be kind, be a good person, be good to your kids. It's not rocket surgery. But these people, they either are completely ignorant and they just don't know. Maybe that's all they've ever known. And it's just intergenerational trauma. But once it gets to a certain point, you can't convince them that they're the bad guy. They're not going to see that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, if I could here. Just real quick in here. I've heard the sentiment. I've heard it said that parental alienation is child abuse. And how do you respond when you hear that? Do you agree with that sentiment or disagree?
100%.
Parental alienation? Yeah.
100%. It's child psychological abuse. It destroys the attachment between a child and a parent. Completely severs it. And that's time you're never going to get back. Like, I could have had a safe and loving dad my entire life. I don't get to have that. My memories, my good memories that I could have had, were taken. I didn't have a choice. So yeah, it is absolutely abuse, and it does affect the child for their entire life. It messes you up.
Yep. Some people would actually contest your statement about the floating rock in the space. But that's
about the what?
How he said it, how he put it, spinning rock in the space. So
yeah,
many truths are challenged.
Well, maybe it's a frisbee. I don't know. I don't care. I'm just here. It doesn't matter. I'm the most cheerful nihilist you'll ever meet. Like, everything's fine. Nothing matters.
Right. So, quick question. I think we just to keep people who are focused on the topic. You decided that's completely within your control. The title that you chose is USA Family Court Class Action Team. So can you maybe tell us a bit more, or the audience, people who will watch it later, what is it about?
So no, I'll be totally honest. When I first started these things, I wasn't really sure what I was doing. I didn't really know what I was talking about. I went with Class Action Team because it sounded good. It seemed like a good idea. It was a quick title, kind of, that people might remember. Or USA Cat. You just call it a cat. So there you go, a little shortener. But I wasn't exactly sure how these groups were going to go. I just figured, I'll build them. People will show up. We'll see what happens. And it has spiraled out of my control, but not in a bad way. It seems to be going well. The people within these groups are really taking care of the groups themselves. They're starting to take care of each other. These neighbors are meeting together. They're filing bar complaints and all kinds of complaints together. They're all going to the courthouse or the police department together as a group. Like, it's a field trip to do this stuff. And it's making a difference.
So what is it? It's a state-based Facebook group for victims of family court? If you can,
yeah, family court, CPS, foster care, all that stuff, because it's so closely related. And we have some guardianship, elderly people stuff going on. So we kind of cover a lot of that. And then outside of these groups, I dabble in other arenas like prison reform, police brutality, auditing, things like that. I follow all of that stuff. And I try to incorporate it into these groups so that we can all use these laws and these techniques, and we can, you know, make things better, or at least let these people know that we're not playing. I mean, we're not being crazy or nothing. We're just filing paperwork. We're just burying them in paperwork. We could do like what the French are doing, which would make my day, but I'm not condoning that.
Yeah, I think the government is trying to provoke everybody, so they might come to that. We'll see. You know, we are reasonable people pushed into unreasonable situations. So as long as we have the First Amendment, we need to discuss and wake up other people, and there are ways to peacefully resolve this tyranny, which is only consolidating fast, right? But it's still not there, even though we can clearly see the direction. Justice J is very active in the comments. She's saying, I've been there for a while. And it sounds like you've been there for a while, right? How long you've been doing that?
How long? The class action teams are almost 2 years old. Which I don't remember. Is it 2 or 3? I think it's 2. But I was doing some stuff in other groups beforehand, and I noticed all the spam, all the scammers, things like that, and all these groups were public, so they weren't safe. So that's why I went and made mine and made them all private, and now I'm the bouncer and I get to kick scammers and stuff out. Like, I can block them at the door, so it's not an issue. And everybody can post anonymously, which helps with safety, and, you know, like, the admins are the only ones who know who's posting it, and we're not telling. So I try to keep it a safe place and not have it overrun with too much craziness. There's certain people that are not welcome in my groups anymore after some pretty flagrant outbursts and just unnecessary behavior. We're not going to tolerate that over there. Like, that's my living room. Behave.
Makes sense. How many people? What your estimate? How many people across the groups, the states you now have?
Oh God, I think the USA group has like 3,900. We might be at 4,000 by now. Some of the state groups are really big. Like Texas, I think, has 340 or something. Florida's got over 200. I think West Virginia's got over 300. Virginia's got over 300. Like, these things are popping. They are popping. I couldn't tell you who's in every group, but it is nuts to scroll through and just check on everybody, see what's going on in all these different states. And watching it from this perspective is quite fascinating. I'm very impressed with these people. They've done a great job.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to say on the, do you know people who've made arguments about parental alienation? Do you know parents who have went to court and alleged, oh, I'm the victim of alienation, or the other one is alienating? And if so, how do the courts receive those allegations? Are they generally well received or not well received? What would you say?
Usually the first person that claims alienation is seen as the alienator, because a lot of folks like to use that as a weapon when they're the ones actually perpetrating it. So that's the problem with that, is that you have to figure out the truth. And to do that, you have to actually diagnose the problem. You got to figure out which parent is the problem. And these judges, they simply do not know how to do that. And they don't have the experience. They don't have the intuition required. And I know that's not really a job requirement, but if you're a family court judge, you need to have a little bit of a gut feeling about things. You need to be able to know when something's up and recognize it before it's too late and the child gets harmed. And unfortunately, they don't have that. They don't have the training.
Well, I was going to add also, it seems like it's really hard to prove. Like, if somebody wanted to make the allegation that the other parent was involved in alienation tactics or strategies and they were alienating the children, how does one prove it? I mean, how would you, if somebody asked you, how can I prove my claims of alienation? what would you tell them? What's a practical way to do that?
It's really hard to prove, and that's why I'm very big on recording. I'm very big on documenting everything. I tell people, get you a notebook, write down everything that happens. Don't quiz your kid when they get home. Like, you're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to have fun with their other parent and leave it at that. That's their time, it's their business. And as long as the child is not injured or like screaming, they're fine. Let them have a good relationship with that other parent. But keep a notebook, record things. A lot of these alienators, these cluster B types, they will slip. Their mask will slip and they will act out. They will say something. They will tell on themselves. So if you're able to record that, check your state laws, because not every state is one party consent. But just watch them. They'll tell on themselves. Eventually, they can't hold it together all the time.
If I may chime in,
Sure.
I'm a victim of I'm an alienated father, and I'm battling it. I engage with an expert in the field, so there's a body of work, there's a body of research, and of course, like every research, you have different opinions, but it's solid science. It's to the extent science can be solid, and those who experience that, Cadence is you're a second generation again, as mentioned, right? So they know that's very real.
It is.
You see how the children are, essentially drifting away. You can see the process. If initially they say they want to meet the parents, they want to be with the parents, maybe want to be, just with that parent, right? And then you see that when the court isolates the children. When you talk about the court, that's Christina is making excellent comments here, and which we should put on the screen and discuss. But as the child drifts away, right, and the alienator isolates the children, violates court orders. We know that custodial interference is not enforced, although we saw a couple of cases recently, probably to placate the public. You have objective trajectory when the children turn from loving and running toward the father or the mother, for that matter, right, turn into distant and eventually reject them until they realize, as happens later in life, that they were actually brainwashed, right? And that's my personal belief, and we need to talk about the courts, because that's I think what the public is here for, the audience. Nobody talks about that, but we need to talk about that. The role of the courts is fundamental. What has been done, and the government is essentially is now cracking down on the term of alienation. Maybe we'll bring a guest. Matthew, I told you that we might have a guest. Maybe the audience would be interested, from Holland, from Europe, hopefully for next week. And that from New Zealand actually agreed to come on the show. It's very hard to logistically, coordinate, because he's 18 hours away from New York and 21 hours away from Matthew, from Nevada and California. So it's essentially the next day. But it's important to bring people from Europe and from New Zealand, from Australia, from other countries. There's a very active follower, friend from Bulgaria, people from Romania. It's all over the world, right? It shows that the government is doing that. And why they're doing that? Because alienation, in my opinion, is central to government's control. Essentially, what government does, they remove one parent or both parents, right, and they replace the parents. And that's how we create the blind trust that is reserved, was supposed to be reserved by God, to your parents, right? You need to trust your parents. It's reserved, it's replaced with blind trust toward government and ends in atrocities.
Right, and I think most of us are wise enough now to know that we should not trust certain systems. I don't want to get in trouble with Paul, but it's
the problem is twofold. So alienators could not do what they're doing without the government help, and the government needs alienators in order to drive a wedge between parents and children. They perfect.
The more conflicts they create within the case, the longer they keep the case in court, the more money they make. Why wouldn't they?
Well, if I could add here also, a famous wise man once said that parental alienation doesn't just happen, it's allowed to happen. Of course, the author of that famous quote is Mr. Roman Brick, but never were truer words spoken, because really they allow it to happen. They know it's going to happen. It's kind of like, just set it and forget it, like an easy bake oven or something. They're setting the conditions, setting the stage, and they know that by removing the parent, the odds are, I think it's almost, it seems, some people are probably more disposed to it, but the courts are betting that if they take one parent out of the equation, the other parent is going to seize that opportunity and start the brainwashing cycle and start complaining about the other parent, and the other parent's a no good this, and whatever they're complaining about. They're not paying child support. They never did love you right. They don't care about you. They're trying to harm me and sue me or something. I mean, who knows what they say? But you have to believe that that it's common enough in the course of human experience that the courts have decided to capitalize on it. They know if they can just a temporary order, doesn't take much time. Of course, temporary orders become months and years, and it goes on forever on temporary orders,
Decades.
which we need to do on decades, yes. But anyways, that's my thought. They know it's going to happen, and they
Mhm.
want it to happen. And I think also when one parent is not in the picture anymore, it really brainwashes the child to believe the government is in control. It's not mommy and daddy who have the final say so. The government is controlled. The judge, the one with the black robe, who's in the semi-religious attire, they're the deity. They're the one who's right, and the state wants to, impress that on people's foreheads. And I think it's, anyways, I think it's really wrong. So that's
You're
my 2 cents.
absolutely right. And I remember being a child and hearing the court order says, the court order says. I'm like 5. I don't need to know what the court order says. I don't need to know that there's a judge dictating my life. I'm a child. I was supposed to be doing child things.
Yeah, we have very active discussion here in the comments. I want to acknowledge everybody. So Christina
Hi,
joined us.
everybody.
Yeah, Christina is a rising star, in my opinion. Just phenomenal writer, and growing group of mothers who, like Cadence, understand the other side. That fathers can be good fathers, right? It's not a war between sexes, and the child needs both the father and the mother. Actually, I remember reading the research that children up to a certain age don't differentiate. They don't know what it is, father or mother. They just see two close people, right, who take care of them. And the government specializes in pitting and dividing and conquering. That's how they've been in control for millennia, right? So
Right.
now it's down to the fundamental divide, the fundamental divide between men and women, fathers and mothers, and most astonishingly, right, and egregiously, between parents and children. So we lost Cadence. Now she's
No,
here.
nope. I'm here. I'm here. I saw everything glitch right quick. I
Okay,
didn't do it.
excellent. Yeah, so we have Jim Scooch joining from Pennsylvania. Derek
Hi,
is
Jim.
here.
Love you.
Yeah, Angela is chiming in. So thanks everybody. Allow me please, to put a couple comments. I think we can take the discussion to an interesting direction. So Jim
Yeah,
is saying
right
it's
on.
easy. Jim is saying it's easy to prove my son was stolen 2,000 miles away, more and more geographically moved further and further. It's common sense. So that's a father who is living through that with
Right. And I'm not saying that every case is hard to prove. I'm saying a lot of times it is very hard to prove. These cases can get very complicated. But if it's easy to prove, then by all means, you can document it, you can prove it, you got your ducks in a row, take it to the judge and be like, look, this is what's going on. And if you look at this, and this source that I've brought with me, this all lines up with this. So why don't we proceed now through this lens and see what happens and see if we can actually reverse some of the damage that's done, or, at least stop it before the child is destroyed. Because that's what it does. It does destroy.
yeah, and then
It
let's
destroys the sense of self. They end up so connected and attached to the narcissistic or toxic parent that they don't develop a sense of self. And then next thing you know, they're in their 30s having a identity crisis, and it ain't pretty, because we have no idea who we are, because we were only an extension of our toxic parent. We were never our own person. We were never allowed to be. Our job was to please the toxic parent.
Yeah.
And that messes you up for life. That's bad. You don't want to put your child through that. And I mean, no judge should want to see that happen to a child. They need to know that that is a huge side effect, and it's a guaranteed side effect.
That's actually an excellent point, because when you say they need to know, I don't think any rational human being now, especially those who live through this nightmare, can seriously claim that judges don't know. They know. They know. I wanted to put a comment here from Derek. The mental health professionals don't understand if they haven't lived it. Even when they are notified, they are inept. And then Derek is saying, and that's another segue into the conversation here, that the judges are the most ignorant. It's not hard to prove if you follow the law, not the core group prejudices. And then Christina is saying, which something that I wholeheartedly agree with: education for officials that have the highest levels of education, training, and positions of authority. And we say they don't know what's going on. They're ignorant. They know everything. This is done by design. And I think, especially we as victims of the system, need to stop pretending. This is clear government tactic. It's worldwide. It goes from county to county, from state to state, from country to country. It's done by design. The government wants obedient slaves, obedient cattle. And how do you achieve it? By taking away those who can create, as you said, identity, right, of an autonomous person. You can stand up to the government and remain independent. So it's a system of control, and precisely because it's such a core system of control, governments everywhere try to ban even the words. I think there's an initiative right now in Canada. They try to ban the words. I was on a Zoom call with a European attorney who actually educated the people who were there, that in Italy, I believe there's a decision by the Supreme Court there, the highest court of that country, that you are not even allowed to mention parental alienation as a term. I believe in Ireland, one of the readers of my page mentioned that in Ireland they tried to legislate it away. And I personally attended a Senate hearing here in New York City about 2 months ago, where one of the people in power in the state, Senator Brett Hoylman, actually brought it up completely autonomously without anyone mentioned, and tried to disparage and downplay this whole term of parental alienation to the giggling sounds of a representative, a judge from family court. It was a horrible spectacle. I have it recorded. I need to make a reel out of that. So if the government is banning something very, very hard, it means how important it is to them. That's my rant. Matthew?
You're good.
No, I'm with you 100%. Seriously.
Yeah, Jim is saying it's a global epidemic by design. USA, UK, Australia, and Canada are the worst. It's everywhere. You cannot say what is the worst.
And hey, right quick, I do have a group for the UK, Canada, and Australia. We got you guys. So join. Go find them and join, and bring people. I can't market all of these things by myself. I need everybody's help with this. I'm just one lone chicken tender. All right. That's all I am. I'm a nobody. So I need everybody's help in getting the word of these groups out. But yeah, I fantasize about something quite a bit, like nothing weird, but like the bailiffs in the courtroom. How cool would it be if, when they witnessed judicial misconduct, if they witnessed a judge or a lawyer or somebody commit a felony right there in the courtroom, which happens frequently? How neat would it be if they just like arrested them right there? What if the bailiffs started standing up for families? What if that happened? Because they are human beings behind the badge. It just depends on how awake they are to what's really going on in this country. Because I know we've got a bunch of good ones. We got good ones here in Fauquier. Not the one that keeps pulling me over, but the rest of them are pretty okay. So it's like, I would love to see more of that. I would love to see law enforcement actually enforcing the law and not just being bootlickers for the judge, because that's got to stop. These guys they talk about it. It's water cooler talk. Oh, did you hear what the judge did today? Da, da, da. Do something. That's your job. You have a duty to act. You need to do something. Why aren't they?
Yeah, I think, and Matthew, maybe as our designated attorney at law here on this podcast, may chime in. But the whole system of government was created with checks and balances in mind, right? And I think sheriffs comes to mind because it was supposed to be a layer of government that's directly accountable to the people. They can deputize people, right? They can essentially They are the level of law enforcement that again is directly responsible, right? So they can potentially take care of errant judges, right? But this institution has also been completely subverted. I don't believe there's one branch of the government that's not subverted. For example, sheriffs in New York, where I am, New York City, they are reduced, I think it's demeaning, to essentially glorified process servers. That's what they do. They serve papers.
Yeah.
So, and maybe it's an interesting segue because if I remember correctly, Cadence, you actually ran for a sheriff office, right?
Okay, so like it was a joke.
Uh-huh.
It was I had to. It was funny. It was funny. I did it for laughs. I knew I wasn't gonna win. That wasn't the point. It was more or less getting a handful of like votes. Just to be like, hey, there's some people siding with the purple-haired lady. I will never forget that post going off on purple-haired people. I took personal offense to that. But yeah, no, I ran just for fun, and I dropped out of the race before it even got serious because it was like they wanted all these signatures, and I didn't have time. I'm a single mom. I work. I got to go to work. I don't have time to be out mingling and getting signatures and doing the politicking thing. And it's not my thing. It was a joke. It was funny. Me and the current sheriff still giggle about it every time I run into him. So it's fine.
Excellent. It's an example, at least to try. Jimmy saying Pennsylvania sheriffs are still for 100% for the Constitution. Father X from YouTube, thank you very much for chiming from another platform. Saying court officers, court officers need an important structure independent of judges.
Yes, they do.
Christina is saying they can't if they were good. They are victimized by immunity. That's an interesting concept, victimized by immunity. So they're also shielded by immunity, and judges are shielded by absolute judicial immunity, which they invented for themselves. That's a topic, Matthew. Maybe you and we need to cover that. But to me, it's just completely atrocious, right? I have federal cases now pending in federal court here, local federal court in the Eastern District of New York, and the arguments that are used are not only unconvincing, right? They are preposterous. So first of all, nobody voted on judicial immunity, right? Second of all, the judges are mentioned explicitly in the code, in the U.S. code that you use, right? 42 USC 1993, right? And they still deny it. So when the law was enacted, right, the legislators had in mind that judges can violate your rights, the constitutional rights under the color of law. And the judges now sit in federal court, shield state judges, shield family judges, right, from any responsibility. And that's how we ended up with tyranny. But that's a separate topic that we need to cover.
Yeah, and it's something that definitely needs to be addressed at some point. And, P.S., abolish qualified immunity, judicial community. We don't need it. Like, people need to be held accountable for what they do. Point blank. Nobody is above the law. Nobody is special. Nobody needs to be protected. If you wanted to have a better life, if you wanted to not be sitting in prison forever, you should probably not done what you did. Don't put it on us. Like, take ownership of your stuff. We can't just coddle these judges.
Matthew is uniquely qualified to opine on these topics because you named your group class action. He actually filed class action. Where it stands, by the way, Matthew, everybody, is
I haven't heard it. What's going on? Tell us.
The big thing is, we're actually, we filed our opposition to their motion to dismiss. They had filed a motion to dismiss with all of the reasons that we kind of anticipated. And I frankly don't think that they have a meritorious argument. But the one that's going to be the most interesting, this is where it really gets interesting, is, again, we're suing the policy-making body for the state. And so the defendants argue that our argument is essentially against the state. And so because we're suing the state, they're saying that the state has immunity, 11th Amendment immunity in federal court. They're not saying that they get off the hook for, that type of immunity. They're just saying they have immunity in federal court. And so California's argument is, you have to sue us in California court, that you can't sue us in federal court. But the test is, this is going to come down to whether or not the this policy-making body, it's called the Judicial Council of California, and the issue is whether or not they're financially independent. And as it turns out, I think they are. We found about 585 Dun and Bradstreet numbers associated with
Awesome.
the Judicial Council of California. So yeah, what is a Dun and Bradstreet number? Well, it's a number that's given to Dun and Bradstreet's a business that will rate corporations and businesses on how debt worthy they are, or that kind of thing. And so apparently, the Judicial Council is, like I say, apparently doing business in about 585 courthouses in California where they have Dun and Bradstreet numbers. So they're running it like corporations. And I believe for that reason that they're really not part of the state. This is Justice Ginsburg in a 1994 Supreme Court case called Hess, Hess versus Port Authority. And in that case, she says that the entity involved does not get off the hook. The 11th Amendment argument doesn't work if that entity is financially independent. And from all outward appearances, it looks as though the Judicial Council is financially independent. So I do believe we have a right to sue them in federal court. And so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But you're right, we need to do a separate show on that one. So
Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Thank you so much for doing all that, dude. Like you're one of my heroes, man. Both of y'all, rock stars.
We need more attorneys who can step up and expose it, but unfortunately they're so rare. And we are all fortunate to have T. Matthew Phillips with us here in this fight, because you experienced it yourself, right? That's unbelievable. But not to go into that's another show, and hopefully we'll have way more in the future until we turn into CNN wide episode making crew. There's another aspect that another topic that you actually remind me. So one of the arguments that the state raised against your class action was that the judge is immune because she's a judge, but you're not suing her as a judge. You are suing her as in a rule-making capacity, right? As an administrator, CEO of the court. And I face the same argument. So I think you found a brilliant retort to that. Like, if that's the case, right, what the government can do is to put a judge at the top of every pyramid of control, every pyramid, every structure of government. Say, oh, we have a head, the judge is the head, and they're untouchable. Is it true?
Well, that's that's so interesting, because in our case, we're suing this policy-making body called Judicial Council. But as it turns out, from what I understand, you can't just name Judicial Council as defendant. You have to name an actual person. In this case, it's the Supreme Court justice who just so happens to sit as the council chair on the Judicial Council. So, but yeah, it's kind of I don't want to, disparage the opponents here, but I think their argument is a little misplaced, because the attorneys for the other side is saying that the judge is, she's immune because she's a judge, and therefore there's absolute immunity. But we're really not, as you pointed out, we're not suing her for undertaking or neglecting any judicial acts. We're just suing her symbolically as the figurehead of the California policy-making body. So there's that.
Heck yeah.
I want to acknowledge Cristobal from YouTube. So you are doing tremendous work, I think, in Florida, and that's another thing that we need to emphasize in these shows, because again, this is worldwide, this is nationwide, it's everywhere. So we have representatives from Virginia, Nevada / California, New York. My case started in Seattle, state of Washington. We have people here from Tennessee, people from Florida, as mentioned. It's and we'll have guests from other countries. So everybody needs to see that that's deliberate. What we are going through is deliberate. The shielding of the judges from any type of responsibility. It's just that's part of the plan. Cadence, just to keep it, since you are the star of the show, there's another topic that I put, to entice the audience to join, farm use. It seems like a running joke. So can you tell the audience what it's all about, and hilarious memes
Okay,
all over.
it is the most Tom and Jerry, Wile E. Coyote and the Road Runner, Bugs and Elmer Fudd type nonsense cartoon crap that I've ever seen in my life. The previous sheriff. Okay, long story short, I own a business. It's called Farm Ferry LLC. I am Stinkerbell because I smell like horse crap most of the time. Today it was chicken. It was quite a treat.
PG-13. We are watched by the judges, please.
Huh?
We are watched by the judges in the court system. So.
Oh, that's fine. They can know what I do for work. Because when I walk into a courtroom, it's basically the same, different barn. Just a different barn, but it's all the same. Yeah, so I take care of farm animals. I do property management, like bush hogging, stuff like that. Like whatever's needed on the farm, I take care of. It's my job. And a lot of that is horses. So I work with horses a lot. And I used to work for a major from the sheriff's department. I believe he's now retired, but I used to work for him and his wife taking care of their horses. That's how the former sheriff got hold of my information. So he called me up, brought me into the office, and he wanted to send me to the academy and make me a deputy, if you can believe that. Not a good idea. And I told him so. I was like, no, homie, I'm not doing it. I don't want to be a cop. I have no interest. That's not for me. But if you need help backstage, I can probably help you out. What do you need? He's like, well, I want to start a mounted patrol program. I'm like, for this county? Nah. No, it's not in the budget. I already know that. And there's no need for it. We don't need mounted patrol in Fauquier County. It's a waste of time, a waste of money, bad idea all the way around. But I was like, all right, I'll go along with it. So I said, all right, well, give me a deputy that you want to run it, and I'll teach him what I know. I'll take him on a ride along. We'll go visit a few farms, take him horseback riding, all good. And at the end of the first ride along, he had to participate in the Farm Ferry initiation ceremony. It's company policy. Look, it is what it is. And what you do is you take a handful of glitter and you make a wish and then you throw it up in the air. It's really fun. It's really harmless. It's wholesome. You feel like a kid again. You ever thrown a handful of glitter in the air? You should. It does something to you in a very positive way. So we did it, and we got it on video. I sent it to you guys earlier, just for funsies. And all was well until I guess I heard that a couple other deputies were picking on him for it, like calling him twinkle toes or some stupid stuff, guy things, picking on him. And so he started pulling me over, and I have farm use tags on my vehicles. I have for the last 3 years or so, I've had farm use tags. My horse trailer, my camper, my truck that has been sitting in the driveway since October. But everything's got farm use tags. It just means I'm a farmer. I'm doing farm stuff. That's all I do. I have no life outside of that. You guys, this movement is my other life. There's no excitement over here. I go to work, I go home, and I deal with this and annoy the government. It's a hobby. But so he started pulling me over a bunch, and his buddy pulled me over, the town police pulled me over. It just became this ongoing thing where I was constantly getting harassed for my farm use tags. There was never a primary offense that they pulled me over for. There was no probable cause for a stop. Just because I have farm use tags, apparently I'm committing a crime. Like, bro, is that a misdemeanor or a felony? Because I'm that person when I get pulled over. It's fun.
I'll tell you why it caught my eye, and of course the memes are funny. It actually shows to tie to a larger topic that we are all discussing, the slippery slope, right? So why actually you need to pay multiple times for something that you ostensibly own? It's your car, right? It's your trailer, right?
Right.
And then you need to register it, and then you new registration every year, right? And pay insurance for that, and just a bunch of added layers of.
Yeah, dude, I'm not doing it. I'm not
Yeah.
doing it.
So
And
that's a great metaphor to what the government does in everything else. It started with licensing and and it goes into harassing you for using the tags, but it ends up with taking our children away. Isn't that so? I think
when
it's very clear.
when people ask me why I fight so hard for the farm use tags, I hope that they realize that it is so much bigger than the tags. It's not about the tags, but the House of Delegates right now, they're trying to pass this new law and take away our old school OG Tractor Supply farm use tags. I've somehow collected like 900 people in the state of Virginia um, that are not going to be giving up their farm use tags on July 1st like they're supposed to, because we're not doing it. And there's a couple delegates in there that know me. We've talked. They know my stance on it. They know where I'm coming from. They get it. Whether or not they help, I don't know. But I can tell you that there's 900 of us that are already we're not complying. It's not going to happen. We're keeping our tags. We're going to keep going.
So wait
Go
a
ahead
second,
and
just
pull
get
us
it
over.
straight.
We don't care.
That's news for me and maybe for other people. They are trying to take them away completely, just to cancel, to eradicate.
Yeah, they want us to go to the DMV and get a DMV farm tag that's going to cost $15, which means that we're going to have to register our vehicles with the DMV so that the state knows who owns what. And it's just like, no.
That's a slippery slope, because first they make you pay, and right, and then you will you will not be able to drive without it, and then I think if you tie it to a bigger picture, and all of us who go to family court, we are not naive anymore. At least I think the majority of victims, right? Maybe that sounds like a part of the larger assault that we see worldwide against farmers, right? It's attacking our food supply.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now I've ended up talking to the guys in like the convoys. I might be involved, just I'm not really involved. I'm more just go and chit chat with people. I'm a farmer, okay? I plant seeds. That's what I do. But I'm also a really bad gardener. So, like, I don't water it. I rely on it to take care of itself. Once I plant the seed, I walk away. It's out of my hands. So, if there's convoys and like tractors and semis and maybe some motorcycle clubs and there's farm use tags involved, I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I didn't do it. Wasn't me.
Yeah, we're just a quick time check. Matthew and I, we usually try to keep the shows under an hour. People see it's about an hour, they're less likely to click on it, but I think our stuff is interesting, hopefully. Just a couple of comments here from Derek. They create limitations to generate revenue. Put it here, and then Christabel is saying registration leads to taxation.
Hey, Christabel's got a farm use tag in the back of his car. I got a picture of it.
$15 today, 115 5 years, if we even have 5 years. I just want to quickly, since again, it's something that we have a common theme here, create limitations to generate revenue. That's an issue that I have a comment on. Yeah, I don't believe the government needs the money. They don't need the revenue. They print the money. The government prints the money. It's the whole point is to limit us, to limiting our freedom, because money is freedom. And again, I am that's something that's very important to me. My faith, my Jewish faith. So our annual cycle is to read chapters from the scripture, and the recent chapters are about the Egyptian slavery, which I think we are just in another reincarnation on, and how the Pharaoh enslaved the people initially through taxation, and it was never designed to bring any revenue to the crown, right? It was just a method of oppression. So I think they don't need the $50 from whatever number of farmers you mentioned, right? It's a question of control. It's a control thing, right? And we see that in family court all the time. You need to, favorite expression by Matthew is belly crawl, right? You need to kiss the ring. You need to bend the knee. You need to crawl.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not about that. No.
Yeah,
absolutely not. So yeah, and they're trying to get money from these tickets. It's silly, it's stupid, and I'm a pro se litigant. I'm going in there by myself, wearing a farm use tag T-shirt. I've been found guilty by the same general district court judge 5 times. I have appealed 5 times. 4 of those cases have been dismissed already. I have one more jury trial on May 1st.
You have a jury trial on the tag use? That's amazing. We don't have them on
Yeah,
children's
yeah.
being taken away.
In Virginia, you don't have a right to a jury trial for criminals, like for dumb stuff, until you appeal it and kick it up to circuit. But then you can ask for a jury trial, and all they're going to do, like the public defender's office is over there giggling because they can't pull this crap. I can get away with it. I'm an idiot. I'm not a lawyer, but I can pull it. And they've dismissed 4 of them. Usually the day before the jury trial is supposed to happen, they're like, yeah, no, we're not. No.
Is there a
They're
jury
not gonna
trial?
do it.
Do you know if there is a jury trial and right to a jury trial in family court in Virginia?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. I'd have to look into that. And I did hear that the family court judge that oversaw my recent case over my daughter, I've heard that she wants to talk with me. I don't know exactly what that's about or which way that's going to go. I'm trying to go in with an open mind. Hopefully we can bring some good vibes to the courthouse that destroyed my life. Maybe we can make things better. Maybe that's her angle. I hope that's what she wants. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't believe we have a right to a jury trial for family court here in Virginia, but
Yeah,
we need a jury of your peers. Yeah, we should have a jury of our peers.
Okay, Matthew. Yeah, I think we are approaching an hour here. I think we covered a lot of topics. We can always reconvene. We see each other on the posts and the comments all the time, right? So thank you for sharing my stuff. I will continue sharing your stuff. Matthew, anything you want to add?
No, yeah, I would like to thank the lovely and talented Miss Harper.
I love you guys so much. It's been so fun.
I concur. Okay, thanks everybody. We'll see everybody in the next live stream, and have a good night wherever you are, whenever you watch it. Thanks everyone.
Peace out. Be safe.